Hi, everybody. It's me again. It's Tanisha, Talking Books with Tanisha. Really excited to talk about this author today. Many of you have probably heard of Colleen Hoover. She's someone that was introduced to me actually by a Facebook page that I was on. Um, it was like a black readers Facebook page, and people kept like lifting up these books and I saying, have you read this book? Have you read this book? And the book that they talked about actually was Verity by Colleen Hoover. And people had all different kinds of reactions to. We're actually going to talk about that book today, but that's the book that I was introduced to, that first came to me, and I got the book and I started reading it, and I was like it was interesting. Like, that's a different kind of a book, and it's more kind of a mystery and like a thriller in some ways. You're not really sure what's going to happen. And then I was like, well, there might be other books that she has too, right? And all of a sudden, like, I started finding these other books, like what sometimes when you introduce to an author, like you end up like kind of going through all the stuff that person has, and um, so I found reminders of him. I found November 9th. I found It Ends With Us. Like, I found those books, and An Ugly Love, and I really liked them. Like, I really liked them. I think the second one I read after Verity was It Ends With Us, and I was like, huh. And then I read November 9th, and then I just kind of kept going. And I've kind of been almost like Colleen Hoover, like marathon, it feels like. I'm not the only person. Like, her books are like flying off the shelves, and they're actually really hard to find right now. And for good reason, because she can tell a story. And not only that, it was really kind of fun about her books is that if you get the right book, you actually find yourself in the middle of like a series. And so that's what I'm going to talk about today. I'm talking about the Hopeless series, because these are the books that I just finished reading. So what I try to do is whenever I go on vacation, I try to take a bunch of books with me, and just try to get through them. The goal is like to get through as many books, because that means I'm actually relaxing and enjoying myself and not working or anything. And so when I went on my last vacation to the beach, I'd already read the first couple of books in the series. So I took the other two books with me. And I'm going to walk you through those today, because you're going to want to get these books and you're going to want to get them in order. Trust me. You'll hear people say, well, this book can be a standalone, and this book can be a standalone. It's true, they can be, but something what I found about Colleen Hoover's books, that if you read some of the books in order, she actually builds upon her characters, and the impact of like kind of all the stories coming together, like that's the experience. That's the part you get excited about. So I'm going to talk to you about the Hopeless series, and I'm so excited to share these with you. Cannot wait. Here we go. So first of all, like I said, the author's name is Colleen Hoover. Her story is amazing. Do more Google search. I'll give you kind of the high level, like a person who like was working, like a minimum wage job, had two kids living in a trailer that her family helped, pay for. Did not really own like a huge home or anything. Just was really struggling. One of the things that she was like just trying to make it day to day. And she was at one of her kids' events, and she kind of watched her child like do this event, and it's like his whole heart was just in it. And she's like, what if I gave that much energy like to the things that I love? And what she loved was writing, and she decided to dedicate herself like to actually writing a book. And her partner supported her with that. Like, they made space for her to be able to write. 2 years later, she's living on a lake house. But let me tell you the kind of in between part that's kind of cool is that she didn't wait for a traditional publisher like for her to do it. She like went ahead and did Amazon Kindle publishing herself, self-published, and then word got out, and the books started kind of flying off the shelves, and people started ordering them, and all of a sudden, like, the attention of a big publishing house, came her way. She's worked for her stories, and I respect that hustle. I also really appreciate the way she tells a story. So let's go back to the series. We're talking about the Hopeless series. I have like all of them here with me, all of them. Because when I tell you, like, I had to have a book in my hand. I don't have anything against Audible books at all. I like print. I like having a book in my hand, though. I like to be able to kind of touch it and feel it and like all those things. So I have all the books right here, and I want to put them. I want to talk about them in order. So the first one, Hopeless. This book is the one that starts all of it, and it has characters. It has four main characters, but there's two that we're really going to focus on. One is Hope, and the other is Holder. And these two people have a chance. They kind of come across each other at school. They meet each other, and it's one of those stories where, like, they kind of like, he thinks he knows her, not quite sure, but he's willing to kind of, like, be friends with her and everything, kind of get to know her better. they start hanging out. Her name is Sky, is what her name is. In the beginning of the story, anyway, her name is Sky, and he just really likes her, and she likes him a lot, and you know, they start hanging out together. And what kind of happens, I'm skipping a lot because you're gonna want to read this for yourself and really understand what's kind of happening. But there's something about her that he's like, something seems really familiar, right? And she's remember a lot of things about her past. She's adopted. The stories that she was in foster care, and then her adoptive mother found her, adopted her. They lived together, so two of them, and she's pretty happy with her life, right? But there's always like this kind of like these flashbacks of things that happen. She doesn't really sleep well. Things kind of seem unsettled, and then she meets Holder, and Holder also thinks he knows her, but not really quite sure why. He's willing to kind of let that go when he realizes that the person he thinks that she is isn't really her. Um, and they fall in love, right? In that love, like she starts having like a lot of like, I mean, even more intense flashbacks because as they become closer, more intimately, she starts realizing there's a block in her mind and her body and everything, and some pretty like some pretty stark revelations. I'm actually reading that part. Stark revelations come out of this of what's been hiding. So he does know her. Holder does know her, but he knows her by Hope. And Hope has a story that is like it's really actually pretty hard to read. So I do want to give a kind of like a content warning that there is mention of like sexual assault in this book. There is mention of sexual abuse in this book. There is mention of death and loss in this book. Um, and so if any of that is going to be a trigger, just know that hopeless, like it goes into that, and it goes into it with a lot of detail. So just know that. And that's kind of like, what is that has been kind of hidden, what's been hiding in Sky's past. But Holder doesn't know Sky as Sky. Holder originally knew Sky as Hope. And so that's this story. I'll let the rest kind of sit for yourself. Um, and the connection between the two of them, these are high school students. So it's kind of like, even though it's written, I would say for adults, it's definitely as high school students. This is their story. And it's fascinating. It's pretty interesting. It's intense. And you're going to want to make sure that you are prepared to read it, but it's good. It's really, really good, right? So this is all told from Hope's point of view, or from Sky's point of view. Like, what is it that Sky is going through? And we have a chance to kind of see how she connects to Sky. I mean, and sorry, how she connects to Holder, and like how she feels meeting him, and like all the things that she goes through. And her best friend's name is Six. Like all these things are happening. That's hopeless. Well, it's always good to know what the other side is thinking too, because Dean Holder, the character in Hopeless, actually is a very significant part of like Sky's life, who we later get to know as Hope. And it's worth kind of understanding his story too. So in this book, Losing Hope, it is a perspective from Dean Holder's story. Now, I just finished reading this actually on Facebook. Someone's like, I just couldn't get into Losing Hope. Like, why do I want to read the whole story? Going to read it from his perspective, and I recommend it. Like, stay with it because the first few chapters for sure is going to feel like it's going to feel so repetitive. It's going to feel like you're reading like these books right here. Like, sorry, like you're reading them like back to back. It's almost like like a mirror kind of concept or whatever. But then it takes a turn because the things that we don't get a chance to really learn about Holder, we do get a chance to learn in this book. And it's important. So we're going to have a chance to go deeper into like Dean Holder's story and see what he's experiencing. Because there's some things that are put into this book that don't, like they're not explained. Like some things happen, like he stops talking to her, gets angry or whatever, and we never really know why. And this goes into a lot of the deeper story between like his sister, which also comes up in the Hopeless book, and like his mother and like his family and all the things that he's going through. We need to understand these two stories together to get why they work. Like these people as a couple, like why they work. So even though like you're gonna feel like you're kind of reading the same thing over again when you first started, you're gonna want to keep going. Trust me. Give yourself a chance to kind of get into the middle of Losing Hope, and you're gonna see why Dean Holder's story need to be told. It's really important, right? Um, Let me try to compare it to you. If you've ever read like the Twilight story where we talk about like if you've ever read Twilight, so I have, and I love Twilight. I mean, long story, but yes, I'm a Twilight fan. Like the whole book is told, the whole thing is told by from Bella's perspective. At some point, we want to hear Edward's perspective, and they did actually write a book where we had a chance like to read Edward's perspective, and it kind of fills in some of the gaps. So that's kind of what I relate this to. Like, you're going to want to hear the gaps that are happening. Two people also show up in this book that are introduced in another book that are important. So we have Dean Holder, which is the boyfriend of Sky, aka Hope, and that's what the two first books are about. But they have best friends, and Sky's best friend is Six, and Holder's best friend is Daniel. And those two people are kind of like, side characters in this book. Like, they're important, but they're not like, huge importance. But they have a story that needs to be told too. And in Finding Cinderella, we have a chance to hear their story. Now, this is a novella, so it's a much shorter book than the other two novels. Just enough for you to understand, okay, so apparently there is a story behind Daniel and Six, and we need to know what that story is, right? It's going to seem like, why does this matter? Please read the novella, read Finding Cinderella. It's going to be worth it. It's also going to be like, less about Hope and Holder. So please don't go in thinking you're going to read more about Hope and Holder. It will be very high level. It's really going to dive deep into like Daniel and to Six. And the idea of finding Cinderella is because they find each other like in this closet. I mean, I don't want to break all, I'm not going to like spoil everything, but basically, like, they've met each other before, didn't realize it was each other. They met again a different kind of way, and they kind of find each other, and they actually find each other, and they fit really well together. So this Finding Cinderella is an important story for Daniel and for Six. Don't lose that. And then we're going to take what's going to feel like a huge detour, like a huge detour. You're going to want to go to All Your Perfects. And this is going to be controversial because some people will say this is a standalone book. Some people will say you must read it as part of like this series. You're going to notice in the picture behind me, it's not even in there. And I'm going to tell you it needs to be. I tried to find a picture that had this in there. Please, like, read this book after Finding Cinderella. It's right between Finding Cinderella and Finding Perfect. All Your Perfects is a different kind of story. It actually is based about around a couple, the Quinn and Graham, and they are in a relationship that is started off by like the deceit of both of their own fiancés. They meet because their partners are cheating on them. They are having an affair, and they end up coming together, and they have their own relationship after some time. It doesn't happen automatically. And they love each other so much. Like, the intensity of their love actually is like overwhelming. It's a really beautiful love story because like they love each other like to the depths of their souls and their hearts and all those really great things. And then they start struggling because the struggle they have is they want to have children, and they can't, and they've tried, and it just is not working. And they have this kind of backup plan, which is where the title comes from. You have to read that to figure out why that fits in there. But they have this backup plan, and with things really get to the point where they really can't be together, they feel like it's going to come to the end of their relationship. This plan is what's going to help them either decide to stay together or decide they really need to kind of like get divorced and move on. And they've been together for 7 years, and for the last 3 of their 7 years have been really difficult. And it's not Quinn's fault, and it's not Graham's fault, but the struggle around infertility is real. And having gone through that with myself, like, I understand that can break a couple apart, or it can bring you closer together. And in this case, it's really tearing them apart. So they go through that struggle, they go through that story. You need to read All Your Perfects because this first is a beautiful book. I think it's probably one of her best, like, honestly. It is like a really well done written book, and you can feel the pain and the struggle. If anyone who's ever gone through this understands, like, this is real. It's a real struggle. And also the love they have for each other is like deep, and it's real, and it's messy, and it's beautiful, and it's all those things. Here's where you need to pay attention. There's, in this story, you're going to see mentions of other parts of these stories. So you're going to find Six in this story somewhere. You're going to find Daniel in this story somewhere. You're going to hear a little bit, like tiny, itty bitty little inferences around Hope and Holder, a little bit. Be ready, because when you get to that part, you're going to be, like, that was my reaction, was, oh my goodness, like, what did she do? What did she do? What did Colleen Hoover do? Well, she did some magic, is what she did. So please, even though you don't see it back here, add this into the series. You're going to want to read it. And then you get to Finding Perfect. And by the time you get to Finding Perfect, all of it, like every last character, every last person that's ever been introduced since the hopeless beginning will be back into this story. And this is where it all starts making sense. And everything comes together. I'm gonna actually not even tell you anything about this book because this one you deserve to read on your own, to be like it's like a perfect bow to a really beautiful package. And it was like amazing. And I think I had heard that I wasn't even sure she was gonna write this book or not. And someone kind of encouraged her to, and I'm really glad that she did. It's like this book just came out like this year, so it's newer. Oh, sorry, it didn't come out in 2018. This is like new to me though. Um, the other thing I do want to say is that I want to just double check this real quick because I think, yeah, so they're all like written about 2018. So she was doing some really serious writing as she was going through this. Um, Read this. It's another novella, so it's really short. It's like Finding Cinderella, very short book, powerful story. Like the amount of kind of intentionality she takes going through and like weaving all this story together, like she knows her characters and she knows like their journeys and she knows how she wants it to go. And I think you'll not be disappointed reading this book. So that is me. It's like one of the longer one because sorry it kind of went so long, but like I've talked about 5 different books in one setting, and I want to make sure that you understand like it's worth reading all of them. I might do some more Colleen Hoover books. Like there's other books that are standalone that I definitely might introduce to you and share with you. But let me just tell you, people have a lot of hype around Colleen Hoover right now, and people are, either they love her writing or they don't. You got to find the right book. Is what I want to say about Colleen Hoover. Is that some people entered with Verity because Verity got a lot of like notices, a lot of like attention and everything. It's not for everybody. So if you're gonna want to read a Colleen Hoover book, don't base it on Verity, which is really important because her stories in general are not like that at all. She doesn't write like that. Like I think in general, it's really like more of these kind of stories that you're gonna want to find yourself like kind of falling in love with. And if it matters to you to follow the characters, you're gonna want to read them in order. So here's the Hopeless series again. It's hopeless, finding hope. Sorry, it's hopeless, losing hope, finding Cinderella, all your perfects, and finding perfect. That is the order you want to read them in. I hope you enjoyed them as much as I did. These are perfect for like the beach. These are perfect for like, a lazy afternoon. They're perfect if you're sick and you just want to kind of veg out on something. If you just really want to enjoy a good love story and like don't mind kind of going through some emotions while you're reading them, this is going to be your series, the Hopeless series. Enjoy, everybody. Keep reading.